Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Bite-Sized Branding. As always, starting on a Friday, we've decided to do the morning. We don't have a special guest today, so it's just back to the original A team, me and Grant. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this Friday morning. Grant, as always, thank you very much for coming along. Grant, because we don't have a guest, I don't have to throw it to anybody else. Mate, introduce yourself. Tell us what you're all about.
Well, Bernard, it's fantastic to just have the show to you and I again. We can do a little bit of jamming. Today's going to be a great impromptu show. So I'm just going to throw it in the middle there and just see what comes out of it. But I think my name is Grant Tom. I'm known as a head fire starter within the marketing and advertising industry internationally. And what I love doing is growing people's businesses. And what I love about that is working with those people, working with the business owners, and making brands reputable, making brands have value, making brands in the sense that they add value to the consumer's lives ultimately at the end of the day. And that's what I enjoy doing.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. As always, love your introduction. Today's show is a bit of an unpublished, unadvertised, unpromoted show. So we're going to be just highlighting a couple topics that were on Grant's mind, all about insider secrets. So what's going on behind the scenes around that brand and marketing space? How do we do what we do, essentially? My name's Bernard Kassab from Lucidity. I don't think I introduced myself, but here I am. Mate, Grant, do you want to tell everybody what the format of the show is like?
Well, basically, it's about Bernard and I talking about subjects that we really have passion about. But because we are so passionate, we tend to run over time. So what we do is we set the clock 5 minutes or less, and we've got to be able to unbundle the subject matter in such a way that it can be controversial. It's different points of view. There's no such thing as wrong answers. It's about what makes sense to you, the listener, the viewer, at the end of the day.
Awesome. Nice and succinct. That's what the aim of the show is. Quick, get in there, give all the information, get out. Awesome. So we've got 3 topics. Grant put these ones together for the show today. So this is Grant's show. He is one and only. Awesome. So we're going to kick off with the first question. It's an interesting question, actually, and it has been asked to me previously in my career. And it's always a bit interesting in how you put together the answer to this question, I think, and I think it's really all about timing, where you're at within your career to be able to answer this. So the question is, where do great ideas come from?
I love it.
You ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Let's hit that clock. Let's get going. So let me start off by saying, where do great ideas come from? So this is a question that is often asked, or when we see a great idea, we share it to someone, say, oh, look how fantastic this idea is, but it's got to come from someplace. So what I tend to do is that business owners, I refer to us as tennis players. As designers, I refer to us as tennis players, because when you serve in tennis, and you do not get your serve into the first little square, the points start counting against you. That's just how tennis works, okay? Mm-hmm. So the same goes for business, and the same goes for us as designers who run agencies, is that we've got to get our serve correct in the square in order for us to start winning. And what we have to do is we have to put on a pair of shoes that is our client's shoes, and we've got to come out as if that is our business as to what those ideas are. But like tennis players, you've got to practice your forehand, you've got to practice your backhand, you've got to practice your serve. Same for marketeers. You've got to keep on practicing your ideas, your interpretations, your implementations in order to make sure that ideas are effective. And where great ideas come from is that it's not how many ideas you've won, it's how many ideas you've failed at, or how many ideas you've sucked at. Because when you failed and you sucked, you've learned. And when you've learned, you know how to make great ideas. So you get a brief, and it comes up to, what are you going to dig into your reserve, your knowledge, your experience, that let you talk about, hey, look at this, look at that. Now, there's a couple of things that, we can do in the sense of, we're talking a bit later about finding a theme, so I don't want to get too much into themes. But I like to find ideas that are unique. I like to find ideas that are novel. I like to find things that never been done before. But I also want to make sure that the client is a winner. And most importantly, is the client brave enough to live with that T-shirt? Very important.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it comes to how brave the client is, and you might have an amazing idea, but it's always striking that balance between a great idea and what's relevant to the client, and then what's relevant to the customers. And you're trying to play this little triangle all the time about balancing all these little elements. And sometimes you get to take a real risk and jump off that cliff. Sometimes you have to tailor it back in order to fit the market correctly. Sometimes you have to tailor it back because the business itself is just not ready to take that leap, you know? But I often describe it as, there was a great designer that described it this way, but I can't remember her name. It's not on the tip of my tongue at the moment. I'll see if I can find it. I'll put it in the comments. But she was the designer who created the Citibank logo, and she described it as her ideas come to her as big, bold strokes. Because she has a bit of an art background. So a bit bold stroke, boom, you know, kind of hits her. I used to find that a lot of my ideas came to me this way. But as I've started to grow and develop in the industry, sometimes it does. But more than often than not, it's actually a listening exercise. Spend a lot of time with the business, a lot of time with the owner, a lot of time with the salespeople, you know, really understanding what's the things that they hear, what's the things that people say around them, what's the insights that they have about the industry, what's unique about their industry, what are the negative things people are saying, are you often the big things, because that's where you can really attack and own the market. Be the first one to talk about the things that people are saying, this is wrong about the industry, this just doesn't work, I don't understand why it's like this. Just attack it there. And it's kind of like being a detective in a movie. And, you know, they had to have the big corkboard with all the newspaper clippings and the photos and the map, and they have like a lot of pins in the wall and string connecting each one of the pins. That's how I feel like often it is now. And sometimes it does come big, bold stroke. But when you actually look at where that big, bold stroke came from, it's made up of a lot of pins and a lot of string connecting a lot of different information, insights you've gathered yourself anecdotally, research that you've done previously, maybe in the moment, information you're gathering from people in the business, information you might be gathering from customers that have been served by that business. There are so many different little strings, and our job is to correct them and come up with this big, bold stroke. So to the customer or to your client, it looks like you just genius, 1 second, amazing, incredible ideas. But it is, and it's been described this way to me so many times. You know, it's 20 years and 1 second.
It's 20 years and 1 second, 100%. 20 years of learning and experience and 1 second of getting that idea. I think what's important is that you got to wear the customer's shoes as to how you're going to receive it. If I was a customer, how would I like to receive it? Now that,
awesome. Did you want to just
now that was a fast 5 minutes.
Yeah, smashed it out. Did you want to add anything just to wrap it up?
I think to wrap it up is that in my mind, I have these passages that I travel along that's got multiple doors. And when I'm running for a client or a customer, I've got 2 pairs of shoes. I've got his customer shoes on, and I've got the client shoes on. And I run down these passages, opening all these doors to see what would flavor the decor of that passage in order to make it work. That's sort of how I can depict it.
Yeah, and I'm going to take a bit of a different tact to kind of wrap this one up. From the client's perspective, you're coming to an expert or a professional for their insights, their knowledge, their experience. Don't devalue what they give you at the table just because it seemed like it came to them in 1 second. It's been years and years of trial, error, understanding.
Years of experience to get that 1 second idea.
1 second. Yeah. And that's why that idea, when it hits the table, you go, what? I didn't even think that. I didn't even conceive that. You know, it's spot on. Now that you've put it on the table, I can see exactly how it's going to be. And that's the reason it is that way. It is that way because it's come with 20 years of experience, knowledge, understanding behavior, understanding people, understanding customers, understanding business, commercial needs, you know? It's that balance that we are challenged with every day with our clients. So don't devalue it, don't underestimate it, and take a look take the challenge. You know, sometimes that one that seems like the odd idea, the weird idea, is the weird idea because nobody else is doing it, and that's why you should go with it. You know, that's the idea. You know?
That's the idea. Very much so.
Oh, I love that topic. Actually, that was great. I didn't know exactly which way it was going to go, but I love the way it went.
It's an impromptu session. There is no planning there. It's what comes natural.
That's it. We can't undo it. It's life.
So let's set
cool.
the
So
clock.
the next, well, I think when I hit it, it just automatically back to 5 minutes. So the next topic we have: how do you build a theme? So it's a bit open-ended. We'll dive into it as we run through that 5 minutes. You ready to go, Grant?
I'm ready to go.
Boom.
All right. So let me start again. I think that when it comes to finding a theme, you want to find an idea that you can never run out of ideas. You want to find a theme that you can never run out of things to say. You want to find an idea that you can keep people interested to want to know more. And I think it comes down to the most basic elements that give you the best leverage for creating themes. It could be a font. It could be a shape. It could be a color. But you can find that you can own just about any theme you want to, as long as you can connect your value and your message to something that's visual that you can never run out of. So an example is Deloitte. They came up with the green dot. Now, yeah, they're an auditing firm. They're conservative. They've got high-end clients. But how are they going to stand out to that of all the other high-end auditing firms? They played with a green dot. And anything that was round and anything that was green, they played with. And suddenly, they can't run out of themes.
Yes. Yeah, and I think at its essence, you know, kind of to leverage our last conversation, it all starts with an idea that can create a story that can be created into a visual conversation, you know? So whether that visual conversation transpires in a font or a little brand element, what is the essence of the entire story is that idea, that initial idea that will create a journey or a story for that customer. Brands that do this really well is something like Adidas, bringing back the retro branding. And now that retro branding has created a whole new story where they're kind of talking about growing up with Adidas. Toyota did a similar theme a couple of years ago with an ad where they ran classic cars that they had all the way to cars that are concept cars. And they're just like, you know, how you've grown with Toyota, you know, and how Toyota is growing with you. And I think those ideas you can keep building on, you can keep expanding, you can keep adapting, much like Deloitte has done there. They came up with a simple idea. The green dot is iconic to them now, you know? Now, how do we take that green dot and create a story out of it? How do we create essentially a theme out of it that we can keep building, expressing, adapting? You know, you could see them run a bus ad, which would be completely unheard of in their space. You would see it and then go, oh, that's Deloitte. That's Deloitte's new branding. You know what I mean? It's so strong and there's such a story behind it. A lot of people, when they go through the rebranding process, don't think about the story. And often the designer is, but because it's not in the budget, you can't, it's hard to show, to communicate the story. But sit with your designer as they go through the rebrand process, understand why they're adding certain elements, because those elements may look a little odd in isolation, but as part of the story, as part of the theme, add a huge amount of value.
So, for example, your idea of taking that dot and, you know, a bus can come by and you can have one big dot on the bus. You can have the bus full of a multitude of dots. You can have a row of dots. You can have a dot outlining a shape. Within a couple of seconds, we've come up with 4 incredible ideas that would look amazing if the bus went by down the road. So therefore, you know, what can you do as a picture that you can put inside the dot that suddenly now takes you on another avenue where you can't run out? In the last minute of my time, I'm going to say to you that it's not about the idea and the theme, it's how you implement it. Because when you're implementing it and you can use all these ideas. That's when you get a little bit of my word, edutainment, coming to the table here, where we start to educate people and we start to entertain people, where they come on the journey and they identify you as to who you are, the value that you are, and what you bring, be it to them or to someone else, in the sense of, hey, did you see that Deloitte advertising? That was pretty cool, wasn't it? That's a fun bunch. And that is all about building perception. Over to you.
And I'd say in the last 20 seconds here, I know quite a few creative directors that are creative director on a consultative basis. And I was talking to one the other day. This is going to go over the 10 seconds. It's a good story. I was talking to one the other day, and he said, I love what I do. He said, I love what I do, but what's frustrating is we create this awesome concept, this awesome idea for a large brand, and then when it comes to the execution stage, we get cut out. And what I wanted to highlight was, don't get all caught up in how brilliant the idea is, and forget how important it is to keep that consistent through the execution. Somebody needs to drive the execution who has the vision of how it's going to end up, whether that is the creative director, the consultant that you've hired, whether that's somebody internally in the business. Somebody needs to understand the greater vision with perspective across every different channel. You can't just forget about the bus ads because you're so focused on the social media campaign. If they don't feel like they resonate at the same level, that they say the same thing, people will get disconnected. They will all get confused. They'll look at it and go, what is this about? What is that? So make sure, if you're driving a campaign, that somebody is there to ensure the execution is connected to the greater vision of what you want to achieve. Because that's where great ideas fall apart. Somebody generates an awesome idea, goes, yes, let's do it. And then it's given to somebody else, and somebody else doesn't get the greater vision. Not to say that they don't do a good job. They just don't understand the context in which it's being put together.
You know, it's like you break your arm, you go to a doctor and he says, you've got a broken arm. He says, this is what we're going to do to fix it. We're going to have to operate. We're going to have to put in a plate. And then as he starts to create the operation, you say, you can step back now. I'll continue operating. I know what I'm doing. You know, it's the same thing.
I'll take over.
So I think that's ultimately what it is. You've got to allow the professionals to do what it is. And therefore, when you attach yourself to a designer, to an agency, their best work is in the implementation. It's not in the startup of the idea. They're slugging it in the trenches with you. But it's when they come to the delivery that they shine their best. And that's where a lot of people take away that polish. And I think that's a downfall from a monetary side of things.
Yeah, and there's a way to plan that into the budget of a project. You know, look at some kind of retainer model or some kind of ongoing model for the length of the project. So you're not looking at upfront fees, but you can get the cash flow to kind of match the expected growth or the expected results from the campaign. And that way you can kind of balance the two and get the best of both worlds.
Correct.
Funnily enough, talking about cutting corners or looking at your budgets or handing off the project when it gets to the meaty part. The last subject I want to talk about is lazy eyes. Now, when Grant said this to me this morning, I was like, what are you talking about? Are you going to explain this to me, or are you going to just save it for the show? And I wish he saved it for the show, because then I would be completely unknown in where we'd be going with this. But in saying that, I'm going to hit the clock, and Grant, you can tell us all about the lazy eyes.
Well, see, the biggest problem that I've got is that Bernard is a bit of a control freak. He likes to control all the elements. He doesn't like to have surprises. So that's why he got to know what the idea was in preparation of today's show. So lazy eyes is a symptom that designers suffer from. Because what happens is they sit by a screen. The screen is quite close by, and they're in the under the world, and they go and they put all the elements that is required into that particular design. Now, us as the consumer, us as clients, us as members of the public will often see a great design and go, wow, I love that. Or, wow, did you see how incredible they've gone and put that XYZ artwork together? But that's only 1% of the design crew that really do that. The rest just do stuff for the sake of doing it. And what I get frustrated with is that you sit with an incredible machine that will give you the tool to do just about anything in the world, and yet they just do the mediocre, they just do the basics, and they just place it without thinking about its position, its objective, and its outcome. And therefore they come back and they say, hey, what do you think? And I think that today's subject is about our secrets. It's about our frustrations. It's about where we sit with challenges. Is that we need all designers to not have those lazy eyes, but to use that imagination as to how is this design going to be implemented in the real world. Over to you, babe.
And I think that's a big point, right? Is application. And that's where often people forget to dive deeper on where is this actually going to be shown and who is it going to be shown to? You know, one great example is think about a bus ad or a billboard. Or contact details should be some of the biggest things on that promotional device. Why? Because they might just capture your headline very quickly as they drive by. They might just capture your logo very quickly when they drive by. But if they can't see your contact details, unless they proactively take it upon themselves to research you, they're likely going to miss out on what the campaign is about. Now, this is not to say that guerrilla advertising, sometimes leaving off all details except for one specific line, can't be a powerful way of marketing. But if you're looking to have more of a call to action or a direct sale through your campaign, then make sure it is easy to consume and to contact you through the campaign. And a lot of people don't think about this. They have this awesome billboard, great image, great headline, and then tiny little phone number at the bottom, you know? The other one that we often see is that in event spaces, event booths, remember that when a booth is full, they stand in front of your banner that sits on the back wall, right? So if your main bit of content or your call to action or your draw card or your tagline is in the middle section or the lower section of that, chances are there'll be people, a table, a chair sitting in front of it at some point. Good. If you wanted to capture people's attention, you have to make sure it kind of sits here, you know, in order to then be visible at the maximum amount of time as possible. Also with booth artwork, you've got to remember that often they have that front lead-in panel that has the name of the business on there. Sometimes you can request to have those removed. So depending on the design, also think about how people are going to access the information within your booth. Are they walking into the booth? If they are, they might be standing in front of your communication piece, you know?
Let me be a bit controversial here. I have a problem on a banner when you start the sentence at the top of the banner with your brand name. I have a problem with it. Okay, you don't start a sentence with your brand name. So you don't say XYZ does the very best locks or whatever the case may be. You know, so you've got to find a way of where you position yourself. But it's about how often have you seen something and say, well, gee, I can't even read this number. It's so small. Who thought this was a good idea? You know, but on screen, it was fantastic. And on then when you zoomed in, it looked amazing. But when it was in reality, it wasn't so cool.
So this is a bit of information that you guys can walk away with. So if you are in the client position, make sure you let your designer or your marketer know what the actual end game is. Where is this going to result in? Where is it going to be placed in the public? And think about what are the things that might be obstacles towards people being able to consume that information in that particular media channel. The other thing is, if you're a designer and you're listening, is to ask the question. If your client hasn't given you enough information, don't just go, oh, cool, I know how I can make all these elements look amazing on the page. Ask, where is this going to end up? I was able just to add that in, just end up, done, finished.
Always got the last word. Always got the last word.
Awesome, Grant. You want to wrap that one up?
So basically, we were just spilling a little bit of our beans today in the sense of the things that we chase on a day-to-day basis with the view to make sure that the end result is impressive, is awesome, but at the same time gives the client a return of investment. So today we spoke about where do great ideas come from. We spoke about how to get that idea to turn it into a theme that you can never run out of things to say or show. And at the end of the day, when we're designing those elements, how do we make sure that all that hard work is all about that when you come into the implementation and the delivery, it's going to look awesome. And I think that is basically the 3 hurdles that we jump over an insider secret.
Awesome, man. That was a great way to wrap it all up. Put it all back in that last little bit there. Guys, I'll wrap up the show as well and let you guys get back to your awesome Fridays, as I'm sure you're ready for lunch. It's coming up. Yeah, definitely could do the lunch. Grant, do you want to do lunch one time? We'll do a lunch, a live lunch.
Yeah, we'll do a live lunch.
Actually not a bad idea. Let's do a live lunch. Okay, cool. We'll get like a third person in and we'll all have lunch, but like virtual lunch. Guys, as always, thank you very much for tuning in. Please like, follow, share, and comment. What we're looking for is for more ideas, things that can challenge us, things that get us thinking, things for us to unbundle in a show. So feel free to share your feedback. You don't have to do it publicly. Feel free to share it on a direct message to either me or Grant, and we'll pop it into the show. We'll give you the props as well. We'll throw your link into the chat. I'm going to cough. Should have brought water in. We'll promote you as well. So if you send us a question, we will talk about you on the show and we'll tag you into the comments so you get your props as well. Thank you everybody for joining us as always. Thank you, Grant, for all your insights on the industry. And hopefully I'll be out in Melbourne soon. So Melbourneites might be coming out your way. There are plans in the works, probably later in May or early June, but hope to see you guys soon. Obviously, if we stop getting COVID and you stop getting COVID, that might actually happen.
Just stop it. Yeah, just stop it. Yeah.
Stop it, guys. Mate, thank you very much. Have a great Friday. And everyone listening, thank you for joining us.
Cheers, Bernard. Cheers, everyone.
See you later, guys.
Touch base with us.
Bye.